Okay, so I'm starting to mess around with these inner fender tubs for the front of the car, and I have it all bolted up into position, into its stock location, and now I wanted to trim off the excess on the bottom here that doesn't match up with my new fenders. So I just wanted to show you a pretty quick and easy little device that I come up with here. It's just a piece of sheet metal, piece of 1/2-inch tubing, again with a little adjustable nut welded on here, 1/4-20 with a bolt with a tab. At the top, I have a piece of 3/8 tube, and then another piece of 1/2-inch tube at the top, thin wall. I think it's an 049 wall. And what I can do with this is I can just slip my Sharpie into this device and set it up against there and just run it along the floor, and you can see where I've made a mark that's level with the floor. Now that's good because it's a complex shape under here, and for me to get that dead even, I mean, I'd have to do a bunch of trim, take a look at it, trim it off, eyeball it again. This way I just have one straight quick line to trim off, and I put a little bit of masking tape there to make my line more visible on that black background. So I've installed the inner rubber fender liner from the Challenger, and actually it's not from the Challenger, it's from the Magnum, because the Challenger ones were like paper thin. So the 06 Magnum was a little bit thicker. It's about 1/16 of an inch, but it's quite a bit more substantial of a piece, and it lends itself a little bit better to what I'm doing here, which is adding on to it. The other piece was just like I said, it's like paper. That was from the 2010 Challenger. Anyway, this is what I've done is I've cut it away where it would round over towards the inner fender, or the inner side of the fender of the Challenger, and I've abbreviated it, and I'm starting to put the paper pattern up here, which eventually I'll use 1/16 inch ABS plastic and extend this out. So here's the completed pattern up underneath, and I'll have to transfer that, like I said, to ABS plastic, and then I'll join the two pieces together, and I'll keep most of the muck out. Anyway, that's that. I was finally able to get a hold of a 4x8 sheet of ABS plastic, 1/16 of an inch thick. So now I don't have to cut up any more trash cans to finish out my inner fender tubs. Going ahead and cut the pattern out for my front wheel tub with a razor knife, and this is taped out on the edge that overlaps the existing inner fender tub. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out, and I'm going to pre-drill all the rivet holes that I'm going to be using, so that when I get in there, it'll all be set up. If this thing fits the first time in, I won't have to pull it back out and do that. Now, the inner fender tub is pretty flimsy, so it helps to not have to drill through two pieces of materials. When you're pushing on two pieces of flimsy material, the one's given underneath, and of course what will happen is if you drill through both of them, when it springs back, the holes will be out of alignment. But anyway, so I'm going to drill these out ahead of time, so that once I tuck it up in there, I'll find the most rigid spots, and I'll drill my holes in those locations, and then I'll cleco it together, and that'll make it rigid for a little bit, and that'll help me to drill out the rest of the holes and keep them aligned. So since this is black material, and I want to be able to see what I'm doing as far as marking it out, first I put down a piece of 3/4 yellow tape, and I wanted my drill holes to be about 1/4 of an inch off the finished edge here. So I laid down another piece of 1/2-inch masking tape, and then I drilled my holes along the green tape. Now, whenever you're doing drilling out for a rivet hole, it's if you're using an 1/8" rivet, most people will grab an 1/8" drill bit, but what you really need is a clearance bit, which is a number 30 bit, and that helps the rivet just drop through both pieces of material without having to force it through. If you're clecoing two pieces of material together, by the way, say you got two pieces of metal and you want to use a cleco to attach them together, the best thing for that would be to just go ahead with the 1/8 of an inch through both pieces of material, because there's a little bit of slop. If you drill it out with a 30, and the combined slop between the two holes will cause for a little misalignment in your panels if you're trying to get an accurate fit with the clecos. So if you want a tighter fit with the clecos, it's best to just go real tight with the actual 1/8 of an inch hole. But with the rivets, it's good to have a clearance hole. That way you're not shoving the material through and then having a hard time. Here's the plastic inner fender tub from the front fender on the left-hand side, removed from the car. I'm getting ready to rivet this all together with some backup washers, aluminum rivets and aluminum washers. And you'll notice there's no attachment point at the front, and that's just because the way this works, the way the Challengers work, is that it just tucks up on the inside lip of the outer fender. And the attachment points are all these holes that you see. There's one there, there's 4 on the top near the shock tower, and there's a couple more. There's some down at the rim. And what I've done is, usually they have a little press-in fitting. It's a little plastic piece that you just pop in because you don't take these things out very often. But what I have to do, because I'm pulling them in and pulling them out, is I put in some, they're Gasipa fasteners. They're like a they're like a nutsert. They squeeze in with a gun. They're aluminum. They're threaded. I put them in the holes. That way I can just put a regular quarter 20 bolt to hold everything in with a washer, and then pull it back out as I need it. So anyway, getting ready to rivet this all together and make it one piece. So this is the completed piece, riveted together. I went to the home center and got some rivets yesterday, and they just happened to be brown for brown gutters, aluminum, and so they look pretty good. So they're already painted. That's nice. Anyway, there's the backup washers on the back side, and that should hold it in place pretty well against anything except maybe a catastrophic tire failure. But then you got other things to worry about. Anyway. Okay, so what I'm up to now is I have this Honeycomb grill material, plastic grill material that I bought online. And I've used it already for the upper grill, and I want to match the lower grill, so I have this piece just kind of roughed out. And what I wanted to do is I want it to stand up vertically in the car, and since the roll pan rolls away at this angle, I have to make a housing that will fit 90 degrees to the world, perpendicular to the ground. Paper patterns just won't do in this kind of a situation because a little too flimsy. So I've got some lightweight sheet metal here, and I'm cutting it and tacking it and cutting it loose and then retacking it in order to get the angles. As you can see, looking from the top, there's a peak in the nose. It's very slight, but there is a peak where it changes direction. So I have to maintain this angle here, these two angles here, and then I want these pieces to roll over 90 degrees to this back flange, and this back flange is where I'll be fastening that plastic grill work. So these are a little tricky, kind of a chicken and an egg scenario, because of the situation under there. So I have to kind of keep putting it in and re-rolling them to try to tighten up that radius so it fits really good and snug in there. And there's also a radius down at the bottom represented by that little piece of paper there. Anyway, so I'll show you the finished piece when I get a little closer to it. I'm working on that right now, but this was the pattern that I started with. It kind of got me situated as to how this whole thing's going to fit in there. Okay, I thought I'd just show you the finished housing before I try to fit it in the car for the last time. This is made out of a little heavier steel, obviously, than my pattern. And it has the flange on the back here, and we're bolted through the grill material on the back side, so that when you turn it around, this is the face. The grill is upright. You can see that's the angle of the roll pan, and this will fit in snugly into the hole. And we'll see how that looks when it's all done, but I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. Alright, so that's it. That's the lower grill installed. I was going to add more details, but when I started mocking it up, it started to look a little too busy. So I'm going to just leave it like that for now. And you can see I reinstall the upper grill just to see how everything looked together. Just pan out a little bit here. You can hardly see the lower grill at this point, but and then the upper grill looks like it's just vertical pieces, but you can see it's the honeycomb, just like everything else. Anyway, on to the next mission. So I went ahead and made up a permanent chin spoiler out of a little heavier gauge steel than what I had used on the mock-up, and pretty much just matched what I had there, except it's got finished edges on it, so you don't lay yourself open. The bottom edge is just merely folded over, then smashed flat, create a soft edge. And then this is the flange that bolts to the bottom of the bar that secures the roll pan. So you'll be able to change it out should you goof it up. And usually that's what happens. You usually run into a parking lot curb or something like that with things like these. But they'll be removable. So here's this post-apocalyptic road warrior thing that I just got done building. I was having a problem with too many connection points underneath the roll pan. I was having the roll pan itself bolted up to that lower bar, and then I had the splitter bolted up to that lower bar, and I was getting ready to put this backer screen in and bolt it up to that bar. So I decided to kill two birds with one stone and attach the deflector screen to the splitter, excuse me, the spoiler, chin spoiler, and then I only have the roll pan that I have to clear, and these two holes here are the connection points that are the bolts that are holding in the roll pan itself. So I had the clearance around those on the bottom side, so now this thing just bolts up to the bottom. But here's the business end of that. This is some expanded steel. This is what's actually protecting the lower radiator from debris. And this attaches to the lower radiator support at this point here. And instead of having a separate flange with some bolt-up points here for this screen, and this being separate, I just put the whole mess together, so this all goes up as one assembly now. And hopefully that'll keep most of the major junk off the bottom of that radiator and the air conditioning condenser. Okay, so that's it bolted up to the underside of the car, and you have to get way down on the ground here to see the screen. Let's see if I can get under here just enough for you to see it. You can see where it's bolted to the bottom of the radiator core support, and you can see the little expanded metal situation going on there, hopefully to block the debris that would make it past the chin spoiler and anything that would flip up from the road, and hopefully keep the damage away from those two components.